Hey, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and I am here in Barcelona, Spain. And so that's why I have the funny lighting and the funny everything. And so my Wi-Fi is bad. Forgive me, but I wanted to talk about something today that I saw. Yvette Carnell wrote this article about Al Sharpton. As you know, Yvette is a resident troublemaker. She's always making people mad and saying horrible things about people, and she's just a bad person, just a
It's
bad person.
awful.
But I got Yvette on the line, so I'll let her explain why she's such an evil human being. Yvette, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm messing with you. Just so you guys know, I don't think Yvette's a bad person. I think Yvette is a very good person, and she's an honest person, and she says what's on her mind, which is why I respect her. Which is actually the reason why, I don't know if did I ever tell you that's the reason why I wanted to work with you in the first place. We started working together, what, about 2012, 2011?
2011, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's been like 4 years now, and I remember you were very straight to the point, and you wrote really well. And I was actually a big fan of your stuff before we even crossed paths. So everything you're doing now is just kind of to me a reflection of what I've known all along. That you're a person that's just you sometimes you're too smart for TV. You have things to say that other people won't say. And one of the things that you recently wrote about that was really interesting. I wanted to ask you about this. Is you wrote about this relationship between Al Sharpton and Donald Trump that I wasn't really aware of. I kind of figured since they were both kind of gallivanting around New York that they probably crossed paths at some point, but I didn't know how deep the relationship was. Tell me about this relationship between the two.
Well, there was an article in the Washington Post a while back. It goes back to like 1989, 1990. And there was an article in the Washington Post. There was an article in the Philadelphia Inquirer, basically about how Donald Trump had given money to Al Sharpton. Then it was a youth network or whatever. He had given donated fundraisers and that sort of thing. But what we didn't know was basically the backstory. And the backstory, came about by the conservative magazine, National Review, got a hold of Don King. And Don King basically spilled the beans on how those two got connected, and he was saying that he wanted to get Al Sharpton some white allies so that he wasn't kind of like out there by himself, because he and Donald Trump were already doing business because Donald Trump wanted to big up Atlantic City, get some fighters out there, and who's the biggest fighters promoter? That's Don King. So they already had a business relationship, and so he wanted to hook up Sharpton. So that's kind of how that relationship, according to the sources who spoke to the magazine, that's how that relationship came about in the first place.
Interesting. So, what's the problem with that? Why do you have an issue
Well,
with that?
it's, it's just it's just sort of it's just sort of ironic, right? You have black people right now running around. Oh my God, Donald Trump is such a racist. He hates Latinos. He hates black people. He's an awful, awful, awful person. And then you also look at, well, who is your spokesman for the black people? You also you all love Al Sharpton. But he's the guy. He's like this. Like him and Donald Trump are cool beans, right? So I just, it's amazing to me, like the hypocrisy of it all. Like how some black people, because not all black people, there are a lot of black people who know that, Al Sharpton is out for Al Sharpton, and they believe that, and that's what, we're on the same page. But it's amazing how some people can be like, Al Sharpton is out there for us. He's on MSNBC for us. He's doing stuff for us. But not look at the relationships that Al Sharpton has as being indicative of who Al Sharpton is and what Al Sharpton is about. So I mean, if you really believe that Al Sharpton is this guy who tells truth to power and all this stuff, then I just don't understand how you can also be like, well, Donald Trump's a racist. Well, that means that Al Sharpton has a cozy business relationship with him, or at least a benefactor who is a racist. Like, what does that say about him? So it's interesting, but I think one of the reasons people like Donald Trump is even even people who aren't racist, because like they're like, he's telling the truth. He talked about how a lot of politicians are prostitutes and will come and beg him for like whatever, $2,500 or whatever the ceiling is in campaign finance. So people like the fact that he tells the truth. So on a lot of things, and sometimes he's inflammatory, and sometimes he's racially inflammatory, and sometimes he just throws raw meat out there just to get the white base. We understand all of that. But I mean, even Trump himself said, "Hey, everybody understands that Al Sharpton is a con artist. I understand that too. We all understand that. Al understands that. Don King understands that. We're all on the same page." So for me, and looking at this, I'm like, it's amazing to me that Al Sharpton has gotten away with this con for so long. I'm shocked. I mean, he went through the whole 4 years of the Obama on MSNBC and got away with this, and everybody was okay.
So, do you think there's anything Sharpton that makes up for the fact that he has this kind of shady side to his existence? I mean, what do you think it is that leads people, some of whom are intelligent people, to still support him despite all the complexities of his public image?
You know, for a lot of people, I would say that there is something redeeming about them, even if they are charlatans or even if they don't do, the right thing all the time. But for Al Sharpton, no. Like, this guy is part of the reason that black people wasted, Obama's first and second term. His decision, he was prominent in the black community, and then decided before Obama's election, I'm not going to criticize him in the first term, and we haven't heard much criticism in the second term either. So I think it's people like Sharpton that kind of stunt a lot of black people and prevent them from becoming sophisticated, political voters, sophisticated political thinkers, because he'll say, "Oh, Obama did this, you got to just hold on, just hold tight." It's people like that put us in this position. So now we're like, yeah, we held tight for how long, and we didn't get anything. So I think there is, in terms of why he sticks around or why he remains so popular, there is something very reflexive and knee jerk in the black community. Whenever white people or white racists go after somebody black who is of prominence, here we come. Oh, we got to protect them because they're black. We saw it with Obama. We see it now with Black Lives Matter. Like, black people are now rallying around Black Lives Matter. Why? Not just because they're anti-police brutality group, but because Bill O'Reilly went in on them. And Megyn Kelly said something on Fox. So whenever somebody is attacked by the right wing, it's our inclination to be like, let's protect these people. Let's go in, and not looking and saying, well, what do they need protecting? Obama doesn't need protecting. He's the president. You don't have to rally around him to protect them from white racists. He has a whole press team that is dedicated to kind of fighting off these sorts of attacks. And, Black Lives Matter, like, what does it matter if Megyn Kelly says X, Y, and Z? They should be able to deal with that. They don't need the entirety of the black community coming together and saying, you can't talk about Black Lives Matter. Well, you can say what you want to say, and they can do exactly what they want to do. They're protected under the Constitution just like you are. So I think this kind of knee-jerk reaction that every time somebody on the right wing or some racist says something negative about black people, that we just rally regardless of whatever thoughts that we have or whatever sort of reservations we have, is something that we have to sort of purge ourselves of.
Yeah, what I see with Sharpton is I see a lot of shades of gray, in the sense that I've concluded that I don't think he's a bad person or a good person. Right? I think he's just he's a person that has certain incentives that are not consistent with my own. I think that Sharpton is a person that has done some good for the world, which is why smart people still continue to support him. I think that if you're in a certain segment of the black community, there's a segment of the black community that has benefited tremendously from the Obama presidency. You talk about all these Negroes getting jobs on the MSNBC. There were people that are quite happy to have, this symbolism from the Obama presidency, right? Because maybe they've got jobs and they're doing well, so they're not necessarily connecting to those who are victims of violence, victims of mass incarceration, victims of various forms of discrimination in our society. Now, I'm not a fan of that, because I think I know a lot of middle class and educated black people who are regular victims of workplace discrimination. Even in the Black Wealth Boot Camp, we did a survey and asked how many of you have been victims of discrimination in the workplace. 95% of them said yes. So if 95% of you are going through the same hell every day, that unfortunately leads to people maybe like Vester Flanagan, if you want to use that as an example, to literally going off. Why aren't you expecting politicians, your leading representatives, to hold a candle up for you, to say something about this, to help fight on this issue? And I think that in many cases what you see is you kind of see a fear or a lack of, or sort of a feeling of powerlessness amongst black people, which is connected to low self-esteem, which kind of says, well, yeah, we're suffering, we're going through hell, but that's just kind of where we are. That's where we usually are anyway. So our suffering really doesn't matter as much as somebody else's suffering. Because you can clearly point to the fact that if white people were going through what the majority of black people were going through during the Obama presidency, white people would never tolerate this. Right? And so sometimes the biggest white supremacists in the world are black people. We literally will understand if white people get upset over 8% unemployment, but we tell black people to be quiet over 14% unemployment, right? And that's not logical. It doesn't make any sense. So I think that that's kind of what what I'm really seeing is us as black people kind of having to. We've got those of us who expect. Sorry, I'm hearing this weird noise in my. Are you hearing the noise?
I'm hearing it too.
Let me see if I can turn this on. I don't know what this is. I think somebody. You know what? I think somebody's calling me on Facebook or something. Isn't that weird? Who does that? Call you on Facebook. Anyway, okay, so I'll turn it off. Sorry about that, everybody who's watching. But I think that this self-esteem issue comes out where we really just don't think we have a right to say much. Even on incarceration, for example, the New York Times, an attorney just wrote a great article in the New York Times explaining that the Obama administration, the administration, being led by your black president, has been illegally incarcerating lots of people, mostly black and brown people. And we try to get people rallied around this issue. And there are some black folks who say, no, that's not right. You can't do that to us. But then there are other black folks who say, well, if you didn't want to go to prison, you shouldn't have broke the law. Well, of course, the idiot. I mean, everybody knows that. But white people break the law all the time, and they don't go to prison like we do. They don't get the same sentences that we do. They don't go through what we go through. So let's stop getting into this whole right or wrong, good or bad, simple-minded conversation. Let's talk in more detail about what equality actually means. And you talk about guys like the Sharptons. Sharpton does a little bit of what Dr. Claude Anderson talks about in his book, Black Labor, White Wealth, where he brings these policies that the Obama administration has created for all of America, and then goes to black people and says, this is how you benefit. Obama signed a bill for gay people. Well, black people are gay too. Obama signed a bill for health care. Well, black people need health care too. Yeah. And he said that that's what they do, right? As opposed to having policies designed from the bottom up, which is black people are enduring a unique type of oppression, a unique type of suffering, and there need to be specific policies designed to address that suffering. And what we lost with Sharpton being so close to Obama in the White House is he didn't do any of that. I mean, I don't recall one single time him going to the White House with something and saying, this is what black people need, and this is what we need you guys to do. And I think that's where the great crime was in all of this, and it really was borderline criminal. I think also the Comcast deal, I think that it's pretty clear to me that if you go and you take care of Al Sharpton, if you don't want problems at a Sharpton, take care of Sharpton. You put some money in his pocket, he's going to go away. He's not going to give you much trouble after that. And I think that just has to be seen for what it is. It doesn't mean that he's always a bad person, but it does say that he's not the kind of civil rights leader that maybe he wants himself to be. Like he's playing both sides of that fence. And that's probably where I would end up getting a little bit concerned in terms of telling people, like, you need to make sure you see it for what it is.
Well, I think the broader point here is that, people tell you don't say anything nice about anybody. And I think the reason that there is not a lot nice to say is that the reason a lot of this is happening and black people are clinging to people like Al Sharpton and other things is because black politics is shit. I mean, let's be honest. We don't, in terms of black politics, we don't have any. I remember I did an article, probably like last year or the beginning of this year, about the Congressional Black Caucus basically working behind closed doors to help Wall Street. We don't have anybody. We don't have anybody we don't even own our own politicians. It's not even about anyone else. So when you look at who we are in terms of black politics and black people's understanding of politics right now, the only thing that you can say is like there has to be an education. I still talk to people who tell me, oh my gosh, he couldn't do anything for those pesky Republicans. As if his Bureau of Prisons budget hasn't gone up every year. Obama's Bureau of Prisons budget is going up every year. Republicans didn't make him do that. Republicans didn't force his hand. So, I mean, you have to have a sophisticated understanding of politics to really see that, okay, Al Sharpton is just basically taking whatever bill Obama passes and saying, oh, guess what? Black people are people too. But Al Sharpton is basically saying all lives matter. Really, when you want to talk about it, if you want to help black people, you do something specific for black people because there have been laws that have specifically disenfranchised black people, and so black people have been saying for a long time that Black lives matter. This is nothing new. It is people like Al Sharpton who are saying all lives matter, and guess what, black people, you too are included in lives. You too are human beings, and so this stuff will impact you. That's not a specific remedy for what we're dealing with. I mean, it sickens me the fact that we're at the end of the Obama administration and we still have, very high unemployment and there's no policy measures. I can go and see, look at how, I can see wonderful stories all over, not just black news, all over the news. There was a story in like Elle talking about the fashion of the Obama girls. They really, and that's wonderful for Elle. They're a fashion magazine, right? But this just that black people have gotten nothing with all of this political capital. You can't expect anybody to take you seriously as a voting group when that's what you've done. And what I try to tell black people, listen, it is about race, but it's also about class. We're seeing now more white people without means getting shot down by the police. You're seeing that more and more. You saw, years ago with the Black Farmers Alliance, you saw the Black Farmers Alliance align themselves with white poor people. That's kind of what, that's what made people afraid. Look at these black farmers, these niggas, they're getting together with white poor farmers, and this is going to be a problem. I mean, you can't. So that's kind of why I'm kind of opposed to this sort of, Pan-Africanist view of things. We have to do things. That doesn't mean you're in their boat, but that just means that where our interests are the same, we can do good things. I saw the NAACP a while back did something really good with the Tea Party about a prison or something that was going to open. Where your interests are the same, you can do good things. And so I think we have to be very, very careful in terms of allowing media to kind of polarize. Even liberal media. Liberal media loves to polarize things. Oh, a black teen, blah, 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 blah. Well, and so they do that for a reason, so that we'll never ever form any kind of alliance with anyone. And I'm not saying you always have alliances, but I'm saying that you have to have a sort of populist movement. You can't just have a movement that where you say I'm not going to do anything with people who say we have a shared interest. And I wonder if people like Al Sharpton who only focus on that sort of thing are a problem, because Al Sharpton hasn't really, pushed any sort of, he's not a legislative guy. He's not going to get policy done. When something happens, he can sometimes help get attention, but we can get attention on our own now. Like, we have social media. We have everything that we need to kind of get on the bullhorn and say, hey, you need to pay attention to this. This is a problem. We need this dealt with. We need this, so I see him as unnecessary and detrimental to the plight of African Americans. And I've seen him like that for some time. The only saving grace is that what I said was going to happen is happening, is that Al Sharpton has been, marginalized to sometime on Sunday when I'm asleep. So I don't have to I don't have to ever worry about tripping by him if I turn the channel on the TV, which I don't watch TV much anymore anyway. But he was used. He was, all these people fought for me. Al Sharpton's great for TV. He's going to bring it. Al Sharpton's job was not to be great for TV or be great for black people. His job was to corral black people into believing that Obama was going to do something for him during the time that Obama was in office. And now that Obama is sunsetting, Al Sharpton is going to Sundays. Al Sharpton got paid. Obama got 2 terms. Everybody got what they want except for black people.
Well, I agree with you, and I think that's kind of been the consistent pattern for our people for a really long time. I think that a lot of people have given up hope because it's just been proven time and time again that the masses of black people really are not a concern for politicians, and our system's really broken for the most part. When I'm looking at solutions in terms of what we can do, I look at communities like the Asian community where the voting rate is not very high, but they're able to make things happen the way they want them to happen. I think Pan-Africanism, the value that I see there is that I think there is value to us reconnecting back to Africa on some level, because I think the strength of the Asian community does come from having a relationship with Asian countries. I think that the strength of the Latin American community comes from having connections to their home countries. African Americans, we're kind of just here without any connections because our culture was stolen, and we think we're Americans, but we're not treated like Americans, and we don't have the wealth of Americans, and we're just kind of floating out here. I don't see anything wrong with, say, Pan-Africanism. However, I think at the end of the day, I think you have to figure out, okay, what's your strategy going to be, and what matters to you, and will your strategy get you what matters to you? So For example, if someone says, my objective, what matters to me is changing policies within the U.S. government, well, then you're right. You need that populism. You need these alliances because the numbers are what matters. The money is what matters, right? But I think that there are ways to achieve certain goals without sort of leaning in that direction. That's why, for example, for me, and again, there are many ways to skin this cat. I'm really focused on black wealth because the only experience I can speak to is my own. I learned this. I learned that when I did not need a white man to pay my bills every day, I didn't really give a damn what white people thought about me anymore. It didn't affect me on a day-to-day basis. Literally, it's been more than 6 months, maybe a year, since I've even had a conversation with a white man in a business capacity. And you imagine, you compare that, contrast that to what my life used to be, where every single day I was going into an office with people who couldn't stand me, right? Dealing with crazy folks who thought that I was an angry black man, treating me this kind of way, that kind of way, because the only option I knew that I had was to go into an economic system that was not designed to support people like me. For me, I would say that maybe because I've studied money and all that, maybe I see wealth or economic liberation as one of the pathways to allowing people to get away from the system. Now, I'm not talking about getting rich. I'm talking about getting what you need without having to beg white people to get it. That's it. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about having balling and having a big house. No, I'm talking about just I can feed my kids, I can pay my rent, I can pay my car note, and I don't have to go beg a white man to do that for me. And I think that's one of the great challenges for black people is that we just really are economically squashed. We are politically squashed. And a lot of the reason we're squashed is not just because people are trying to squash us, but because we don't know how to get unsquashed. we keep going back to the people who don't like us to give us what we want, what we need. The Obama presidency, as far as I'm concerned, was a symbolic success. It was symbolic and beautiful, but it was, in pragmatic terms, it was an absolute, complete tragedy, a disaster, a failure, an embarrassment. It made us look like complete idiots. There's nothing good. There's nothing about this presidency that says that the masses of black people are better off. I think that's been cleared, or that case has been made beyond any doubt. Now, does that mean we should be mad at Obama? Maybe we could be, but I would say that it probably means we need to get mad at ourselves because Obama and Sharpton and all these little players who are all getting ahead on black oppression, they're only reacting to the environment that we helped to create among ourselves. So, because think about this, no matter how much, even if Al Sharpton changes to him tomorrow, even if Obama changes to him tomorrow, you're still going to have millions of black people who are going to accept anything, right? Who are just going to let him get away with anything, whatever. And that's the part of the conversation that I think needs to be had as well. We need a deeper political education. We need a high esteem. Because right now, we hate ourselves, we hate each other, and that's what's killing us.
I mean, let me just clarify. When I talk about Pan Africanism, I'm not talking about the need for black people to reconnect. That there isn't a need for that, or there isn't a need for those sorts of business relationships. I mean, I was just talking on a friend of mine. I have a very good friend who's Nigerian, and we were just talking this morning about the whole controversy of Will Smith and his awful Nigerian accent, in the upcoming movie. So I definitely think that's a good thing. I definitely think that's a positive thing. But what I'm talking about is this sort of pseudo Pan-Africanism that seems to have caught hold amongst so many of our people in terms of, what's wrong with the environment? See, this is the white man's air, and if the white man, get that out your head. Like, that's just let's just, and I remember hearing a lot of that BS during the 90s, like this whole thing of I mean, let's just let that go. These are sort of antiquated notions of blackness. So that's what I'm talking about when I say this sort of what I mean is this sort of pseudo Pan-Africanism that's really not about real, business relationships. It's not about any of that. It's really about this idea of black superiority. This because we have poor self-esteem now, so we have to say everything black is good and everything in black culture and African culture is good. Like there aren't some failings there too in terms of in terms of a lot of things and genital mutilation, a lot of other things. So I mean, it's sort of that thing where instead of white supremacy, we go for black supremacy and be like, and we start to fight that fight. That's stupid. So for me, my last word is just like, on this issue is just like, for me, I think black people need to, to turn off empire sometimes. And and turn off the TV, and it's time to like give ourselves a political education. You're a black scholar. We have a lot of black scholars who write who write some wonderful black books. We just tend not to read them. And that's why we make these sort of knee-jerk decisions or whatever, because it's easy to make a knee-jerk decision when you don't have the information to assess exactly what's going on. And I said at some point I might actually start like a book club, for black people who follow Breaking Brown in Your Black World, so we could just get together like on our message board or on the website or something and read political books, written by really good black scholars, and discuss them, as opposed to being like, oh girl, that come on tonight. I gotta catch that. So I just press people like, just one book a month. Let's just one book a month. Can you do a book a month? 12 books a year. How hard is that? So that's my last word on the issue.
Well, I think it's a great last words. It's a great way to close it out. And I think we want to make it clear that I personally can say that I've not made it my life mission to go after Al Sharpton per se. Would I work with him? Probably not most of the time. But at the same time, I think that we're in a new era where there's a segment of the black community that I think is really advancing, really figuring things out, really empowering itself, and I believe that as they achieve their goals, you'll see other people start to follow suit. Because even those who don't question the existing system, I don't think it's a matter of them not knowing that there are flaws in the system, that there are problems. It's just that I think that there really is sort of a hopelessness. And in a way, it makes me think about the movie The Wiz, when all these people, all these workers worked for the evil witch, but they really didn't want to be there. They just did it because they felt like there was no other option. And when they received an option, they went to the other option. So my goal is maybe in the next 5-10 years, we can keep creating other options, and people will move in that direction. Let's hope for the best. Well, thank you very much, Yvette.
Not a problem.
Your time. All right, everybody. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from the Black World, reporting to you from Barcelona, Spain. And until we meet again, by the way, I'm sorry, I totally forgot. Yvette Carnell, her blog is breakingbrown.com. You got to go to Breaking Brown. She gets millions and millions and millions of views and hits on her site because it's damn good, and it's unlike any other. It is unlike any other website on the planet, and I say that with complete sincerity. There is no other Breaking Brown out there. If you know of another Breaking Brown, tell me about it, because I guarantee you it doesn't do what this lady